Hey there, hikers. You got Sloth and Dreamer here again, and we're talking with the Section 3 Trail Coordinator, Brian Hirt, today. We're not on the trail. We're out in a local community college, just out enjoying nature on a beautiful day. And we thought we'd catch up with Brian a little bit so he can tell us how he became a coordinator and what his responsibilities are and the state of his affairs there. So, this is Brian Hirt. Brian, originally, I believe you were from Michigan. You tell us how you ended up down here.
Yes, actually I left Michigan in 1976. My wife's family was from East Tennessee, and when we got married in 76, I decided that we should move to the mountains. So we chose East Tennessee, and I lived there for a while, and then a job opportunity brought me to West Virginia. So I moved to Charleston, West Virginia, and lived there for about 6 years, I guess it was 7, and kind of fell in love with West Virginia. And unfortunately that job ended, and I had to relocate to North Carolina for a few years. But in the back of my mind, I always wanted to come back to West Virginia, so a job opportunity arose here in Covington, Virginia, which is right on the West Virginia border, and I came and took the job, and I've been here for about 26 years now. And I was looking for outdoor things to do because I've always done outdoor things. As a child growing up in Michigan, I would spend a lot of time in northern Michigan and learn to appreciate outdoors. So I learned about the Allegheny Trail, and I learned about Hanging Rock especially, and went up to the tower a few times and joined the association. And then wasn't long I learned about the gap in the trail, and just so happens that where I bought my house sits about in the geographical center of this gap in the Allegheny Trail. So I got involved with Doug Wood and some others, researching places that we could put the trail and working with the Forest Service. And that's been, gosh, close to 25 years ago now, and we're still working on getting the gap done, but hopefully we're making some progress. I feel like we are. We've got some new people that have gotten things kind of going. They've got a lot of energy and enthusiasm, so we've been meeting with a lot of different people. So maybe we are making some progress on the gap in the trail, and that's really how it all transpired, I guess.
Okay, sounds good. For our viewers that are not aware, the Allegheny Trail is not complete. There is, the gap he's referring to is in Section 4, and it's about roughly 30 miles, something like that, where there's a road walk to bypass the path that they would prefer to go, and I believe there's a rough path that is mapped out. It's just not marked, and they do environmental studies and things like that to see what the impact would be. But Brian is trying to help out with that now, and Doug he referred to was Doug Wood, who's the Section 4 Trail Coordinator. And he's quite a character. We've already interviewed him, and hopefully they'll be getting some things done there. Okay. Now, Section 3, where you're responsible for, is what, it's about 90 miles, or?
It's actually 64 miles.
Okay, 64 miles.
Yeah.
And it runs from Route 14, which is close to Sherwood State Park, and it goes up to Cass, I believe.
That's correct.
Okay, so a lot of that is you're coming down and crossing creeks, and then you're going up on mountaintops. And we really appreciate the ridge walks that we had at the beginning of the trail, and there are some ridge walks that we see on Section 3 as well. And in the last few years, one of the things you had to deal with was a reroute because of the gas pipeline. What can you tell us about that?
That was in the Scenic State Forest, and the Atlantic Coast Pipeline was going to cut through there, and the Trail Association worked out a deal with the powers that be at, I think it was Dominion Energy, that put the pipeline through to reroute the trail, and about a 2-mile section of the trail was rerouted, and the power company paid to have the new trail created, They actually paid for a new bridge to be put in, and it was really a good deal for us as far as improving the trail in the Seneca State Forest. We've just recently did some more work up there clearing the trail, and it's in super good shape, and it's one of the prettier parts of the Section 3, I think. There's several old shelters up there that were built by the CCC back in the 30s, and that's a nice part of the trail.
It is, and Dreamer and I can attest that the tread that they put in up there is like a superhighway on the as far as the trail goes. We were wondering if they used some kind of a trencher or a backhoe or something like that to dig that out. It just looks so uniform.
I think they had a small backhoe that they did most of the work with, and they did it in a rather timely fashion. It didn't take them long to get it accomplished, and it is really a nice section of trail now, a 2-mile section that takes you from the shelter down to a creek there at the north end of Seneca State Forest.
Right. And we did notice there were a few fossils that were unearthed there. It looks like it's pretty rich in fossils in that section. And right where that starts, there is an old CCC shelter, I believe.
Correct.
That what was that originally used for?
You know, I really think it was just part of the park. It was like a picnic shelter type thing, I believe. That's what it was. You know,
it's more open-sided.
Yeah. A lot of our parks in West Virginia were created by the CCC. Watauga State Park is another example in Section 3. The whole park was created by the CCC in the 1930s. Matter of fact, one section you walked at Beaver Creek Campground, there's a place called the Landing Strip. That was actually a landing strip during the CCC time. That's when it was built. And there's old pictures of biplanes actually landing there on the Allegheny Trail. So,
that's neat. And the strip still looks like it could be used for something, you know, like a bush plane or some short takeoff type vehicle.
Right.
All right, now I understand that besides the Allegheny Trail, you do some work for some other places around West Virginia.
Yeah, I do some volunteer work at several different organizations. I'm a member of the Allegheny Highlands Master Naturalist chapter, so I do some volunteer work with them here in Allegheny County, Virginia. I guess my biggest thing is Hanging Rock Raptor Observatory.
Which is on the trail.
Which is part of the trail, exactly, and it's kind of became a passion for me. I'd say it's probably been 20 years ago. I was up at Hanging Rock one day and watched the bald eagle fly over, and I was hooked. From that point on, I've been involved with raptors, not only the count at Hanging Rock, but I've gotten involved with the Three Rivers Avian Center in Hinton, West Virginia. They do a lot of good work rehabilitating injured raptors and that kind of thing. And also Watauga State Park. When I first came to West Virginia, that was a special place for me, and still is. There's so many opportunities here to do volunteer work in such a great environment. It's hard to say no sometimes when you get asked to do volunteer work. And especially with the raptors. Up at Hanging Rock, every year we count somewhere around 6,000 plus or minus, and it's just a great place to see them. I've traveled to a lot of hawk watch sites in the country, mostly on the East Coast, but from Minnesota to New York and Pennsylvania and Michigan, and Hanging Rock, you may not see as many raptors, but a lot of times they're right there, eye level, right in your face. And if you see a bald eagle right there, you know, in your face, or a golden eagle, especially later in the year in November, it's really something. There's been a lot of people like myself that have come up there that really had no interest in birding at all, and come up there and witness these raptors doing what they do, and they just get hooked to it. Kiddingly, we call ourselves addicted to it, but yeah.
And at that point, even if you don't see the birds, it's such a great view up there.
Yeah, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, it's not It's not a wasted hike if you go
Right.
up there. All right, now speaking of volunteers, when you have volunteers for trail maintenance, you want to tell people how to get hooked up into that?
You can watch our Facebook page, or you can look on the website. We try to post whenever we have a scheduled work session, and it's usually on there a few weeks in advance, sometimes maybe a week in advance, just depends. But generally it's scheduled pretty far ahead, or try to, and it'll be in different sections at different times. And sometimes it varies by the need. If we have a storm issue, for example, if we have a big storm somewhere and messes up a section of the trail, then we'll target that. Another thing that's involved with that is our reports we get from hikers. It's very important that we know where the damage is, where the work needs to be done, because trails are like houses. You tend to have certain things that problems crop up more often in some locations due to weather, or just due to the environment there, the type of trees that grow there. What comes to mind for me is a part of section 4 actually, that has an area that was heavily damaged by gypsy moths. Well, the gypsy moths killed the trees. That's been 15 years ago now. Now the trees are dying and falling at a fairly normal rate almost. So it's a place you have to revisit frequently, as opposed to an area that has good strong timber that you don't have to work on nearly as much. And there's open fields. In section 3, there's one place that comes to mind. It's at Bear Branch. I'm sure when you started up Bear Branch, you had to walk through that field there.
Oh yeah, fighting ticks the whole way.
Fighting ticks, yeah. And we do go up there, and I weeded all the way through there after you'd went through there, apparently. And got a few ticks myself, but we try to not just keep it in the woods, not walk in the green tunnel all the time.
Right.
That field at Bear Branch, when you probably went through there, wasn't that good a hike as far as what you saw, but if you'd have went back later on, when all those wildflowers were blooming in there, and there were so many bees and butterflies, and later in the year when the goldenrod was blooming and stuff, it's really a beautiful little stretch through there. And that's, the Trail Association tries to spread out what we see along the trail. It's not like, even in logging areas, we've had places in the past where logging came in and clear cut an area, but that doesn't mean that we won't continue putting the trail through there, because that's, you get to go back through and you see the regrowth of the forest, and it's all part of it. It's all part of nature, and that's what you want to get out and hike for, to see nature. So you got to see it in its true form, I guess is how I'm trying to put it.
Well, in my lifetime, I've noticed a lot of places that do get clear cut. And a few years later, when the berries start coming in, and in the smaller shrubbery, it seems like more deer and things like that will come back to feed, because at a certain point, a forest can become what they call sterile, where it's not really dropping a lot of food or mast for the deer. So it's there are sections of woods you can go through and there's just no sign at all, because there's no food there. There's nothing to attract the animals. But
Right.
the clear cut, even though it may not look attractive at the beginning, it allows things to grow up that normally wouldn't.
Exactly. And in an area like that would be an area that we would have to prioritize as far as maintenance, because when the sunlight reaches the ground, that's when the stuff starts growing up, the briars and all that you got to push through. So we have to go in and try to keep those areas clean. That's why it's important that we get feedback from hikers. And over time, we've learned where to go and where not to. But you never know. There's been pockets, and this happened just this past April, a little spot north of Huntersville on the trail where a freak microburst type storm, a straight line wind deal, just more or less flattened 2 acres or 3 of the trail, and made it, uprooted all the trees, and it was impossible to hike through it. So it became a target area this year for us to work on, and fortunately we've been able to get in there and reopen it.
Right.
But that's the kind of things you deal with. And storms are a big issue. I can remember in years past, like Hurricane Sandy did a lot of damage up in the northern part of West Virginia on the trail, and so that's all part of it, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess after a severe winter where you have ice storms and things, that can cause some damage with the trees, or maybe even bridges and things. I don't know.
Yeah, ice storms can be bad. I know a couple of years ago we had one on Peters Mountain up in an area around Hanging Rock in South. We had to go up there and do a lot of work. Fortunately, you know, we'll put the word out, and especially in places like Hanging Rock that are so popular with so many people, generally we get a good turnout of people and have a lot of volunteers, and that's, you know, it's a good thing because many hands make light work, and
Right.
It's very true on trail work.
Any particular skills you're looking for with the volunteers?
You know, really, a lot of times you just need hands on deck. It's people that can drag the brush out of the way. We have several certified sawyers and that are trained to use chainsaws, and so they do the actual cutting, but it's nice to have people just to drag the brush out of the way after you cut it. And there's different tasks that need to be done when you're improving tread, you know, no matter just hoeing the ground or digging and that kind of stuff, so pretty much anybody can do that. But there's always, you know, something that, you know, somebody can do, even if it's just picking up trash at a trailhead. It's, you know, it's a lot of work,
Right.
you know.
We've noticed some sections there where we saw where the people come through with the loppers and cutting things off, and you know it's just manual labor. Is
Yeah.
What you're doing, just putting in hours of manual labor. Now another note, it seemed like the only place we saw rattlesnakes was in section 3. What's up with that?
Well, depends on who you ask. Some people say that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Personally, I enjoy seeing rattlesnakes. The area you saw that rattlesnake in there was north of Watoga there, I think. It's a pretty common area to see a rattlesnake. I had encountered one a year ago on Marlin Mountain. There I was clearing the trail, and I just reached down to pull a branch out of the trail, and there was one right there underneath it. I've seen them several times down on Peters Mountain, south of Hanging Rock.
Right.
That's a pretty prominent area to see rattlesnakes. I can recall one experience we had. We were working near Sherwood Lake, and we had a AmeriCorps guy working with a young fella from Pittsburgh, and he was sawing on a log, and a beautiful yellow rattler crawled off from the log he was sawing on, and it was neat to see, and
Right.
nobody got hurt, and but you know, that's just part of nature, and you just have to take it as what it is, and yeah.
Now, in all honesty, we were on Peters Mountain earlier in the year, probably before the snakes became very active, so we can't blame all that on you. But yeah, we did see the total of 3 snakes, and they just all have to be in section 3.
Okay.
Yeah, three rattlesnakes, I should
Three
say. We saw
rattlesnakes.
some other snakes around. But
Okay.
no copperheads. Are there any copperheads on the trail?
I'm sure there is in places, but it seems like rattlesnakes are more common than copperheads. I think a lot of times copperheads tend to stay down lower along the water,
Yeah.
places that have water and that are wet.
I tend to see copperheads a little bit more around streams or
Yeah.
springs or things like that.
That's been my experience as well.
So it's always good to watch.
Yeah.
Don't assume that they're not going to be there.
And, you know, and some people, they see a snake and it just goes immediately to their head. Well, you got to kill it. You know, it's not a good thing to do. And I've run into not a whole lot of rattlesnakes, but a fair number, I'd say. And I've never had one that was aggressive. Never. I've had black snakes that were aggressive. You know, they actually come after you, but never a rattlesnake. They coil up, they rattle at you, and you wait a few minutes, they'll go on their merry way, and you can go on yours. It's no big deal, no problem.
Yeah, I have to say, all the ones we saw did give us warning. Plenty of loud. Be
Yeah.
sure you don't have your earplugs in.
It's
while
a
you're
distinct sound. When you hear it, you'll know for sure what
hiding.
it is.
Once you hear that sound, you'll know it.
Yeah, it's just like the westerns. Yeah.
Right. Okay, and there was quite a bit of bear activity through there too. I noticed on section 1 up north, I didn't see hardly any bear sign at all, but in sections 3 and 4, it was quite common.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably true because 3 and 4 are more remote, you know, more wilderness type environment. Around Watoga State Park, there are a lot of bears. Peters Mountain has a fair number of bears. It's not uncommon to see them there. Once again, personally, every time I see a bear, I get excited. not fearful, but just I enjoy seeing them. So, and I've never had a bear that didn't run away from me, or as soon as it saw me or smelled me or whatever. So, personally, I would be more afraid of feral dogs than I would be a bear.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the future look like for Section 3? I know that the gap is primary in a lot of people's mind, but is Section 3 that you coordinate? Is there anything going on there?
As far as Section 3 goes, I'm really pleased to say that we've had a great turnout this year with help. People that have come down from all over West Virginia and Virginia as well, and have helped us improve the trail in Section 3, clearing the trail, doing tread work. It's probably in better shape today than it's been in a long, long time. And it's all because of the volunteers that have come along this year and helped us. And I think maybe COVID has actually been one of the positive things for COVID, because people are looking for things to do to get out. And you can do that, and you stay distance, and you enjoy yourself.
Right.
We talk about trail work. It's kind of deceiving sometimes to say work, because a lot of what we're doing out there is just we're being outside and we're seeing things in nature, and it's not like there's anybody pushing you. You just work kind of at your own pace generally, and you try to get done what you can and enjoy yourself. We're not afraid to sit down and take a break or stop and tell stories or whatever. It's not like you've got to get X amount of miles in a day or anything. You do what you can comfortably, and you go home, and it's a good experience for you.
And it will be appreciated by the hikers.
And it's appreciated by the hikers.
Right. Okay. Well, Brian, we appreciate you talking with us today.
Good meeting with you.
Yeah. And again, we'll leave some information about how to contact Brian or get in touch if you feel like volunteering. And we'll put that in the comments below or on the screen. Thanks for being with us today.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it. Thank you for making these videos. It's been a joy watching them and seeing the trail from the camera, and you've done a good job. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you.